Hey guys and girls, how's it going? Hope you guys are having a great week. Welcome to the Normandy newsfeed, your one-stop shop for all things gaming and geek culture related. We are back today with episode 7. This is our 7th episode. We have had a bit of a break for a month. This is due to my own reasons. So it's nice to be back and recording our monthly podcast. And thank you to Fish and Dante for joining me again today.
Thank you for having it.
Appreciate it. And we're going to kick off today's podcast with the beginning, which is what's new.
How you holding up, Skipper?
What is new? What is new? What is new with you? That's this month's song. There you go.
That's brilliant. I need to capture these. I might actually keep these for like streaming in, like, you know, when somebody like subscribes or does something, I'll just have like little fish singing going in the background or something. So like as audio cues or sound bites. So I'll kick off this one this month because I always begin. And what have I been playing this month? A lot, but the biggest thing I've probably been playing and sinking hours into is Baldur's Gate 3, which I have been friggin' loving. Like, I am not a Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I have never played Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I'm a complete noob when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. I have friends that play it. I think Edge was really into Dungeons and Dragons at one point. Have you guys ever dabbled?
I've made a character sheet and that's about as far as I got. I would love to play Dungeons and Dragons, but I need somebody who knows what they're doing. And I would like to do it old school of sit around a table, roll dice, have a DM.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, I had no intention of getting Baldur's Gate 3. I did not plan to buy it because it's a big ass game. It's like easily 70, 80, maybe even 100 hours just for one playthrough. It's a big ass game, and I knew Starfield was going to be coming out in September, so I'm like, I don't think I've got time to play it. But then Mother Mantis contacted me and a few on another Discord channel I'm on, and they're all like, yeah, we're forming a Dungeons and Dragons, like a Baldur's Gate 3 tabletop kind of crew. Would you like to join us? And I'm like, oh god, that's really tempting. So I ended up like just
get it,
biting the bullet, buying it. It's really cool. We've got like Fairy Wing Andy, who is kind of our resident Dungeons and Dragons expert. So she's like our guru. She kind of leads us through and stuff like that. Myself and Mother Mantis are kind of new to it, so we're very much the baby of the crew. Like, we don't know what's going on. But yeah, I created a character. I've been playing it both multiplayer and single player, so I've got 2 different characters running at the same time. My multiplayer character is a female tiefling. She's really cool, and she's a warlock, so I am like eldritch blasting everything off of the face of the earth. It's amazing. It's very cool. Eldritch blast. Super powerful.
It's the alternative to fireball.
It's a broken ass spell. It really is, especially if you put repel with it, so you can push people off of ledges and things. So I've been playing that. We're definitely a motley crew. Like, we've got a rogue, we've got a warlock, we've got a fighter, we've got like a hunter. Mother Mantis is playing a bard, so she's like just constantly playing like in the party as we're moving along. She's just playing little musical jigs, and people are coming up and throwing coin at her and stuff like that. It's really funny, and it's hilarious. It's really good, but I'm really enjoying it. Like, I'm so impressed with the game and the sheer, just the breadth of choice and the breadth of things that can happen. Like, I'm playing the game in both multiplayer and single player, and I'm having completely different experiences based on like my class, my race, the choices I make, my rolls, and how lucky I get on some of my my D20 rolls and stuff like that, like if it goes well or it doesn't go well. But I love the fact that even if you fail, it just carries on. Like, it just carries on. Like, that you just have to deal with the consequences. This is very much a game where consequences really do matter, and it's a very new style of RPG for me. And as I've been playing through it, I've realized, like, you pick up bad habits through RPGs because you're used to the same things.
How does the game actually handle death then? As I know, one of the big things of, sit down D&D at a table is your character dies. That's it. They're gone. There's no rewinding time. There's no, if your character is dead, they're dead?
So this
How
is
does the game
so,
handle
so
it?
it is a game. So I don't know how it handles it for NPCs and characters. I think if you kill someone, they stay dead. But your player character, if you die, like it will just be like a death like game over kind of thing, and then you just reload your last save. So your character cannot die, for video game purposes. But in terms of I haven't killed any companions yet.
How about a
so
multiplayer scenario?
Yeah,
Obviously, you
multiplayer.
play multiplayer and one person goes down. Is it
Ye-
just you faint until they help you up?
Yeah,
Again, or-
well, yeah, you go down and then you can basically, there are these scrolls that you can use to revive people and things like that. But characters can die. Like if you don't have a scroll to revive them and you like go to your camp, like they will not be there. They're like we got Shadowheart killed. Shah like set fire to this, like accidentally set fire to this like whole area and it just blew up. And poor Shadowheart was a crispy corpse on the ground, and he did that much damage to her that she just went down and completely died. And we were like, oh god, let's go to camp, and she wasn't there. We went back and she's like just a crispy corpse. So I think you can kill, like single player wise, you probably can kill NPCs, you can kill probably your companions can leave you can royally piss off your companions, and they all have their own kind of interrelationships and arguments and the backstories and things. It's just really, really good. Like I'm so immersed in this world, like you just get completely lost. And it is turn based. It's like, you know, play from above kind of turn based, and that's not usually my cup of tea. I'm much more of a action kind of gamer. But I'm actually really enjoying the tactical nature of it, and just the sheer like breadth of freedom that you can do, like even in combat, even in exploration. There's so much scope for like look around you in the environment and things that you can use to your advantage, and you can set traps, and it's not just a case of just damage dealing. Like you can actually like do some pretty cool like creative things. And so in a way it's really refreshing because it's making me kind of look at scenarios in new ways, because we've got very used to video game development now has become very like tried and tested, like, oh, here is an area and we can clearly see the very clear marked like cover points and we know what's going to happen and we know generally what we need to do. But this is like throw all that out the window and just approach something with like your own imagination, and generally you can do what you can imagine. So it's been really refreshing. Like, and as an RPG fan, I'm like absolutely like floored by it. Like, just, I mean, BioWare for me were always the pinnacle of RPG, you know, with Mass Effect, but this is giving Mass Effect a run for its money. Like, it's really, really good. Like in terms of the breadth of choice and just how much depth is in this. Like, I can't even imagine. I mean, obviously this is in early access for like 3 years. So, and it really is paying dividends. Like you can see that, you know, because of all the polished it is, and because of all the fan feedback and all the quality of life improvements and all the suggestions and recommendations from the community, because it's got a pretty strong fan base, community base, you can see it. So this is definitely an example of where early access works really well. And obviously if you've waited until the final product right now, you're really getting the benefit of that. But yeah, really good. Like if you're an RPG fan, or like just like really good character story driven games, the world's fascinating, the characters are, it's just really good. I can't recommend it enough, honestly. But you do need the time to sink into it because it is a big game. So
the only reason I haven't picked it up myself yet.
yeah But maybe when you do pick it up, we can play through together if you want, which would be cool. It is really fun. They really capture the essence of tabletop. Like honestly, like it would be so much fun for like you, me, like Fish and even Edge to jump in and play it, like a proper tabletop. Like it really captures the essence, like the feeling of D&D and that tabletop multiplayer.
Interestingly enough, I've
really
just seen that I've got a download update required for Demio as well, so that's another tabletop one we ought to go back to. We were enjoying that.
Yeah, we were.
There's more on that too, so
Yeah. For sure. So, Fish, what have you been up to then?
I've been up to lots of things this last month, more than I thought. The big one in the game-related news was Pikmin 4. Obviously, been waiting for that for, again, I think it's been 10 years since Pikmin 3.
Jeez.
I think it was 10 years before that for Pikmin 2. So, yeah, they're not coming out quickly, these Pikmin sequels. What I would say immediately off the bat with Pikmin 4 was it lasted me twice as long as the last Pikmin. This one lasted me 2 days rather than one. And I appreciate that's entirely down to my own absolute obsession with Pikmin. For those that don't know, my playthrough of Pikmin 3 was done in a single sitting. And I absolutely loved it. I actually slept between playing Pikmin 4. I slept twice, so
You slept?
I slept twice. Mainly
Casual.
because
Filthy casual.
I know.
mainly because there's
I was like, we're gonna have to go check on him and make sure he's okay.
there was
Just
a couple
a
of moments.
skeleton of fish holding a control pad next to a copy of Pikmin 4.
There was a couple of moments in Pikmin 4 where I thought, oh, this is getting to the end of the game now. That wasn't as long as I'd have liked, and then it just kept going, and that happened like 2 or 3 times. I was like, all right, I'm down with this. This is exactly what I wanted out of Pikmin 4.
That's good.
I would wholeheartedly recommend Pikmin 4 as a great entry point to the series for someone who's never played a Pikmin game. It really does do a great job of not piling on the pressure that Pikmin 1 had with like you have X number of days to complete it, or that's it, you're done. It has a nice gathering element to it, as Pikmin always has had. There really is the focus now on Pikmin 4 on the whole ethos of micromanagement, sending your Pikmin to do something and then trusting that they will be safe on their way back, so that you can take your Pikmin that you have remaining and go do something else, or leave some Pikmin to build a bridge while you go fight some monsters. You really have to... There's certain underground challenge areas where the whole point of it is you have X amount of time to do an achievement, be it defeat all the monsters in this cave or collect all the pieces in this cave, and you've got 5 minutes, go. And it really does test your ability to do that well, and I've absolutely loved it.
Sounds almost like strategy level of like...
Oh, it is. It's people have always said Pikmin is baby's real first time strategy, which is to an element. It's true.
Yeah, that's true.
To an element. It is a really watered down version of a real time strategy game. Where it's, I'd say, slightly different is because it's your first person. It's not just viewing down from above. You are the character, and you're viewing it from a ground level. So if you leave a lot of Pikmin doing something and run off to do something else, they're not in your field of vision. You can't just pan over to them. If you want to see what's going on, you've got to walk back to where you left them. So in that respect, it's not like a power from on high real-time strategy. You've really got to think about what you're doing in that sense. Obviously, the big new addition to the game as well is your doggo. You have a space doggo, which helps you do things, which is almost like an extra addition to your Poochie. Yes.
I thought it was
Ochi,
not Poochie. Ochi.
Yeah, Ochi. Poochie's from Yoshi's
Island.
story.
Right, okay.
Yoshi's Island. But yeah, Ochi is your little space doggo, and it's a delightful game. If anyone has never played a Pikmin, this is a great way to start. Obviously, Pikmin 1 and 2 are available digitally on the Switch, and are getting a physical release, I think, in November. Pikmin 3 is out on the Switch as a deluxe version from the Wii U version. So actually, every single Pikmin game made so far is on the Switch. If you enjoy Pikmin 4, I recommend going back and playing the other 3. All of them have their own nice little variants. Each one's a solid game. Very briefly touching on my other elements, Mega Man Battle Network picked up a physical copy from Japan,
Right, yeah.
because
Yeah,
only America
last time we were talking. Yeah, you were waiting for it to arrive, weren't you?
Yeah, only America and Japan are getting physical releases. We're not over here. Thankfully, the Switch is region free, and thankfully, the Japanese version does come with all languages and actually is defaulted to English, which is fantastic. So
Interesting.
I've so far played through Mega Man Battle Network, the first one, which is the only game in the series I've ever played, and I loved it. So now I can move on to Battle Network 2 and see where we go from there. Nice addition is that the defining decision of whether or not to buy it was the multiplayer aspect. The old Game Boy version had one where you could link up with other Game Boy players who had it, and have a battle with them using their chips and your chips, and it's kind of like a bit of a real time but also turn-based battle system, which is really nice. And there were queries as to whether or not the ports would actually support that. Not only do they support it online, matching up with randomers. So it absolutely, that sold it to me of getting it, because that's a huge part of the game as well. As well as the actual video games, the board game section has come back. Unfortunately, a friend has convinced me to get back into Warhammer, which after 15 years is a terrible brunt on my wallet.
Slope right there.
But I had some time off work, and I now have a friend shouting at me because I've painted more in a week than they've painted in 6 years. So the painting side is what I've always done. I've never really learned to play the game, so this is the trade-off. I will be teaching them how to paint as long as they teach me how to play. So we're getting there. And last but not least, I have picked up another board game. Let's just grab it here. It is a delightful game called Flamecraft. Absolutely gorgeous game. The back of the box simply states, in a magical realm, a village awakes and artisan dragons make coffee and cakes. And it's a little, the game is really nice and chill. There's no aggressive tactics in it. You actually gain more points by helping other people. So it's a really relaxed, friendly game. It's basically a street with shops on either side of the street, and your dragons are going around town, getting resources for sandwiches and things, and it's all just very pleasant. It's such a delightful game, and really has to be played to be experienced.
I feel like we should have coffee and cake when we play it, like a full
Absolutely.
tea party,
And
like kind of thing.
I will be coming around to introduce you and Dante to it as soon as I physically can.
Cool.
It's just, check it out. The regular version you can pick up most board game shops, and it's a really good price as well. It's like £35. There was a Kickstarter version, which I'm regretting not getting hold of, because the Kickstarter version has lots of really nice, rather than little cardboard tokens for all your resources. It's got little wooden ones and little plastic dragon models and actual metal coins for your currency. So it's just, the deluxe version is beautiful.
That's cool. I'll have to check that out at some point. So Dante, what have you been up to then? I already know what you've been up to because I've been up to it with you, but tell us about it.
Sounds suspicious, but all right.
Well,
I just realised I walked right into that one, didn't I? Jesus. Okay, carry on. Giggles.
Can't even.
Giggles.
Remnant 2. Let's.
Yes.
Despite never playing the first Remnant game, although having to look up a bit of a lore video to catch up with some of the plot, really liking Remnant 2. Cool, kind of like shooter. I'm automatically thinking it's a little bit better multiplayer because I've just been playing it through with you, and it's just been a lot of fun.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah, so we're pretty much world hopping in this thing, and you've got so many world tile sets, but then they're like sometimes jumbled up, and they do the kind of like random rearrangement of certain set pieces.
Randomly generated, yeah. So you've got different world instances which are randomly generated. Yeah. So like certain things in my world instance won't be the same as say in your world instance, kind of thing.
Yeah. But then you've also got like the option to re-roll the world at any point, like in the kind of adventure mode, to like go, okay, same world again, but switch up the elements, maybe find some different weapons or armor or other special odds and sods each time, come across different NPCs, different bosses and stuff like that. So it's rather clever, and it handles really well. I like the gunplay in it. It just fit because it's that kind of third person over the shoulder jobby. and I think that works just well. No motion sickness, it's all good. Yeah, even the meleeing works. It got a bit. I had to get used to it because sometimes, when playing gun games, you hold down left trigger to aim and then shoot. But sometimes you're in a panic and you just want to do a quick shot and then run away. But you can't do that because the quick shot is actually just your melee. So then, it's like, no, what am I doing? But other than that, it's been good. It's been very few bugs. There's been some funny little instances and
but only small ones, nothing major.
Yeah,
just little blips and stuff.
It's getting annoying in multiplayer though, how the NPCs are like forgetting us. It's like, I've spoken to you. Why do you think I'm new to you?
I saw you 10 minutes ago. You do.
God.
But it only seems to be in the hub world. It doesn't seem to be in the other worlds. So it's cool. It's a very good game.
Yeah, and it's definitely really fun multiplayer because like you can you've got your various classes, but then you can also swip and swap them and have two classes at the same time. So I'm like being your healer, like Kate's being totally tanky and like with a shotgun.
I'm a challenger with an engineer, so I've got like up close basically. The closer I am to you, the more damage I do and the more damage debuffs I get. So I'm like super shotgun. And then I've got like this electric gun called the Enigma that just strips through everyone. I've got this big ass long sword, great sword, so I'm up close and melee. My class is really cool, the Challenger, because if I go down, I'm like, not today, and I like fist like punch the ground and get back up and carry on. And then I've combined that with the Engineer class, which has this really sweet turret that I can either just put down and it'll just attack people and cause some aggro, or I can actually hold it, pick it up, and just like mow down everyone. So I am definitely an up-face damage dealer, aren't I? And you're very different. Like you've gone from more of a support class.
Because I'm the medic. I'm looking in the top corner at your health bar, and the moment I see it go a bit too low, I'm like, ping the shield, swap the mod on the gun to shoot healing bullets at you. Yeah, there's a lot of customization on like what mods you can put on weapons as well and all that. And then I've been swapping and swapping my second class, so I've got like ones that can like see through walls, so I can tag everybody, or I'm gonna get the one where you've got like a dog that runs around as well. And it's like,
best boy, he's great.
Best boy. Yeah, you can pet him and everything. It's really good. And and then the only other main game I've got passively in the background is Outer Worlds, because I never got around to playing that one. So very different. That feels more like BioShock versus Fallout or something like that. But with
it's Fallout in space. That's what it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's from Obsidian, so it's Fallout in space.
And there's definitely been some Firefly influence, I think.
Seriously, I don't know how she didn't get copyrighted for like just ripping off Kaylee.
Ashley Birch doing a Kaylee character, like even down to the voice.
Yeah, it's very much a rip-off. I don't know how she got away with it, to be fair. Joss Whedon was having a chill day on that day.
So they're the main thing. Oh, except the other random passive is, remember I bought like ages ago, that Super Dungeon game that we're trying to paint up. I bought like the digital version of it like yonks back. They made like a game of it, and I've been just like passively playing that every so often on the Switch as well. So yeah, loads of games on the go.
Yeah, it's very, very good. We like once we're like what 25 hours. We probably put like more than that into it because we played in your game Remnant 2, didn't we, Dante?
Yeah, we wanted to see what
the difference were and stuff. But we're definitely going to do a review of it because it's a game that's really surprised me. It's in my top 10 list, like for this year. Like it's really surprised me how good the game is. And it's like the exploration is like levels of Elden Ring. It does not tell you. It doesn't give you waypoints. It doesn't tell you where to go. It's like, I found this key. I have no idea what it opens or what it's connected to. And so it just rewards you for like exploring and going off the beaten path. And then it's basically, a lot of people are calling it like Souls-like with guns because the enemies are quite aggressive and things like that. But the worlds are really cool. Like there's one that's very much like Resident Evil inspired. There's one that's very Aliens inspired. Like the worlds are just really cool, and they have their own like sub stories and lore to them, and it's just very cool. So just to finish off on the Remnant, but yeah.
For
good.
those wondering though, and if it's putting them off a bit, I don't consider it quite as a Souls game just because you don't drop your XP or currency
Yes, it's more
on death,
accessible.
so you don't have to worry about that.
You don't
You
have to
just
stress about
respawn
that.
back and have to.
That's very
Yeah,
true.
you still got the campfire crystal styly things, so it's like, yeah, I'll respawn all the enemies again.
Yeah,
Other than that,
and the multiplayer is definitely easier than it was in Elden Ring, where you have to like jump through 10 million hoops to actually do it, and then it doesn't quite work anyway. So it's very easy multiplayer to jump in and out of. It's really good. I recommend it, definitely. Awesome stuff. So there are lots of things that we've been getting on with. I feel like it's been ages since we've actually got together and done this and like talked about what we've been up to, because it's been like a month and a half. So let's move on to the second part of the podcast today, which is our main feature.
Spit it out, or are you trying to build suspense?
Incoming news. Main feature.
Awesome. So in today's main topic, I planned last month to talk about video game preservation. Yeah, that very much was the topic of the month in July. There was an article that dropped on the 10th of July, which was by the Videogame History Foundation, in partnership with Software Preservation Network. And they did basically like a deep dive kind of investigation. Only in America, though. This is not globally. This is only in America. But they basically, in this study, they basically found that 87% of classic video games released in the United States were, and this is their wording, critically endangered. It's a bit extreme. It's a bit extreme. But that's what they said. So they were talking about, obviously, they looked between all games released between 1960 and 2010. So I guess anything pre-2010 was considered retro. That really makes me feel very old. But they basically looked between this period and they found that just 13% of video game history, these releases, were being represented in the current marketplace. They said, obviously, there are ways, of course, to play these games. You know, one of the major ways to play retro games is you've got choices. So either you can go down the route of pirating, not piracy, but sort of emulation. Let's say piracy. I don't really class it as piracy.
It's still technically piracy.
It is technically, because you don't technically own the game and you're getting it. Technically now you can get it for free, like you don't even have to pay for these games. So yeah, you can get these retro games through emulation, and also you could try and find them on eBay or someone who's selling them, but obviously you're likely to pay an inflated price point, right, on that, because a lot of retro games in the West anyway are considered collector's items, so the prices tend to hike up on them. So that's one route. And obviously they were just talking about how exactly. I bet you that would go for a lot of money. I bet you it would. But there were some interesting parts of the article, because it was talking about sort of how you compare video game media to other things like books. Like, you look at libraries, right, and novels and books and classic novels and classic books and classic music and videos, and being able to access these and purchase these or rent these out, take these out from a library. You just don't have that with the video game industry, because you have to play it on site. You can't take it away, or they're limited in what they've got. So I think it was more a case of sort of talking a little bit about kind of just the inaccessibility of retro games and how it is actually quite difficult to get hold of them. It's quite an interesting article to read. I'll put the article in the link in the description of the video, so you can go and read it yourself in your own time. But I wanted to talk about video game preservation today. I actually reached out to one of our friends, Ven, who is quite passionate on this topic. It's a big thing for him. He's very passionate on it. And he kindly recorded a 6-7 minute video response to the article. It's quite strong. So what I'd like to do, because it's really good, is I'd like to watch it, if that's cool. And then we can see what Ven has to say on the topic of video game preservation. And then we will chip in with our own thoughts on it and our thoughts on what Ven had to say.
So N7Kate asked me about video game preservation says that's something you find interested in. I'm like, yeah, I have opinions on that. So let's have a ramble and rant. The Videogame History Foundation have made the bold claim that 87% of classic games, which they define as anything from 2010 and earlier, have been lost to time. Lost to time. I mean, that's quite an emotive statement, isn't it? 87% of games lost to time. It's not true though, is it? The preservation of classic video games, certainly commercial video games, and to a degree, a lot of the non-commercial ones as well, has never been more robust. I appreciate we have piracy to thank for that, which the Videogame History Foundation touches on briefly in their article, saying, oh well, we don't want to be dealing with piracy, do we? Well, speak for yourselves, guys. There is a thriving community of people who are very happy to deal with piracy, if you'd even call it piracy. Which kind of leads into their key tenet here. So 13% of games, with these classic games, are still commercially available, presumably on some sort of digital storefront or in other, or remastered or whatever. That is great, I appreciate, but the other 87% that are simply not available anywhere, can you really call it piracy if something is not available? I appreciate from a copyright point of view, yes, it is technically piracy. But if you're not depriving anybody of any money because it's not actually available to buy, is it a case of no harm, no foul? Well, far be it from me to say, but I know there is a thriving community of people who feel just that, and emulation has never been easier. So that's where you take a modern device and use it to pretend to be an old games console or old computer and play these games. The Videogame History Foundation also make the point of saying, so the only way to access these old games is through piracy, evil, or through buying expensive, overpriced, and it is overpriced, classic game cartridges and expensive console systems, which frankly are a pain in the arse to get to use on modern day TVs. Anyway, that's also just not quite true either, because there is a middle ground option. You can get, for all your classic hardware, you can get what we call a flash cartridge. So you can get these pirated ROMs, which is what we call the classic game files, put it on one of these flash cartridges, plug it into your actual console and play the games on the original hardware. So actually, there's three routes. Buy the original actual cartridge and use it on original hardware, buy original hardware, use a flash cart, or emulate. Now, emulation is also something they would describe as a technical barrier, and I don't think that's the case anymore. Emulation has never been easier to do, more user-friendly, never more accessible. Obviously, emulation on PCs has been a thing forever and a day and is reasonably mature, but we're also seeing emulation on mobile devices, mobile phones, tablets. There are numerous, there's a thriving community of dedicated handheld games console devices built entirely for emulation, and they are absurdly affordable. Some of them are under £100, and the price can go up depending on how much power you want, but for £100 to £200 you can buy yourself a very high quality device that will basically flawlessly emulate everything up to and including GameCube. That's peanuts, and the devices are reasonably easy to use, and that is why preservation has never been stronger. The community that cares about these games, arguably more so than the copyright holders, are absolutely dedicated to making sure that these games do not get lost. And sure, they're doing so by uploading them to archive.org, sharing them on BitTorrents, sharing them person to person, putting them on mega uploads, whatever, all sorts of places. But that's the point. The games are everywhere. It is functionally impossible to eradicate them from the internet, from people's collections. It is trivial for anybody to get damn near any game from the classic era and more recent in mere moments, and then moments later have it up and running on a dedicated gaming device, on the actual hardware via a flash cartridge, or on their laptop, however they want to play. It's never been easier, it's never been more flexible. So the other point is, only 13% of these games are commercially available. Great that they are, but have we thought about why that is? Is it because those are the only games that people actually care about, that are actually likely to buy? Could be, because let's face it, putting these games up is not simply a matter of throw it up and it's done. So if you've got an old classic title and you need to capture it and emulate it and make it work well enough to actually be saleable, there's a lot of investment in time and money to be done there. There's development work, there's QA work, and then you've got to host it somewhere, you've got to make it available. It doesn't cost nothing to have this stuff hanging on a digital storefront. It should, maybe, arguably, but that's not the case. So who's going to pay for these 87% of games to be found, rights acquired, and made to work on a modern games console, and then the ongoing work to keep that working on each new modern games console generation that comes around? That is a big ask. That is not a cheap ask. And arguably, really, is it necessary? Considering that if actual preservation is what we care about, that's already done. The pirates did that for us. They have provided us with a perfect and a robust backup of damn near everything. So, actually, 87% of games lost to time? False. Absolutely false. Would it be great if companies paid more attention to the cultural preservation of their games? Absolutely. And should there be some sort of requirement for them to have some sort of archival method? Absolutely. Damn right there should be. But suggesting that these games are lost is nonsense. There is not a preservation problem. There is an attitude problem from the companies that own the games in the first place. Yeah, absolutely. But the community has just gone ahead and just kind of solved that themselves. So, actually, pipe down. Preservation is golden.
Yeah, I think launching straight into it, there's very little more I can add to what Venner said, in that he's exactly right. The article, when it did the rounds, it was a scaremongering clickbait article.
Yeah, it was.
Attracted a lot of attention. He's right. The games aren't lost to time. They're there.
No.
The question is, how accessible are they? Legally accessible.
Yeah.
That's the question. The fact is, as you said, they're very accessible if you want to learn how. You know, emulation's never been easier. You can get flash carts, you can get mobile phones that'll do it these days. You can get a dedicated device to do it. So
even things like the Steam Deck, I think, got in trouble at one point with Nintendo because they were putting an emulation software on the Steam Deck where you could play Nintendo games.
To this day,
and
one of the most commonly used handhelds that is used for emulation is the PSP because of its power, because of its ability. You know, the PSP and the PSP Go are both highly sought after devices, not even for playing PSP games, but for emulation machines.
Yeah.
So yeah, the methods are there. The argument about, you know, is it worth the time and effort for big companies to keep records of these? I mean, you know, is anyone really going to cry themselves to sleep because the code for Mega Man Battle Network NT on the GameCube is lost? Probably not, because it's an absolute, excuse the language, shit heap of a game. You know, there are some games that probably deserve to be lost to time. Whether we'll be that unfortunate, I doubt it. Half of those games that are on the PS2, like Son of the Lion King, where it's a puzzle game mixed with crappy AMVs that were made in some, you know, knockoff, you know, animation studio in the arse end of nowhere. It's like, are people really going to cry because that game was lost? No. So, yeah, I think that there's very little more to add to what Ven has said that, you know, is there. We've got a record of them because piracy has sought that. Whether it's legal or ethical, that's not for anyone to really debate. The fact is, they have done that job. The second one, it is unreasonable to expect companies to hang on to things forever and a day to make games that were made on, you know, the Commodore 64 accessible on a modern day device. It's ridiculous to expect them to do it for everything that was ever made. But people are doing it, and if you want to do it as a passion project, fine. This, I believe, all comes down to one thing and one thing only. How far do you allow companies to persecute people for doing that if they choose to do it? As Ven stated, are you making this game as a company readily available? No. Are you actually actively selling it? No. Then who is anyone hurting financially by making that game available by other means, because if you're not selling it, people physically can't buy it. You already made your money on the original release.
Yeah.
That's if a company decides to ethically release a game, I know the big one at the moment with the most recent Pokemon Direct is everybody's going, oh, they didn't put Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green, Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire, or the Pokemon games on the Game Boy Virtual Console on the Switch. Well, they should have done that. Well, no, they shouldn't have done. They could have done. There's no should have done. But realistically, also because those games are not accessible in any other means, does that give Nintendo the right to stop people pirating those games? Arguably, no. It doesn't give them the right to pursue them.
There was a really interesting, because I did send another article to you guys. There was a really interesting article in 2011 which really, I think, hit the nail on the head. It was by Valve's Gabe Newell, and he said that piracy, it's not an issue of pricing, it's an issue of service. Yeah. And what he said was spot on. He said the easiest way to stop piracy is not by putting anti-piracy technology to work or persecuting or prosecuting. It's by giving those people a service that's better than what they're receiving from the pirates. So if you make these games, of course, yeah, it's expensive. It's not cheap to make these games available. You've got licensing issues, copyright issues. Like, you've had the new Disney Illusion Island, right, on the Nintendo Switch. That really made me want to go back, and play Castle of Illusion and World of Illusion, that was on the Mega Drive. But Disney will have the licenses to that. Nintendo aren't going to go to Disney and go, hi, we'd like to buy these licenses off of you. And Nintendo are like, here you go, give us $2 billion or whatever.
I think that's also the problem with a lot of the old games. Is you say Disney will have the license.
It might not be Disney.
I don't even know if they do.
The company that had them might have gone down.
Because there were so many cross-pollinations of ownership.
Yeah.
It's like, I know a lot of the Disney games were made by Virgin Interactive back in the day, but necessarily you would also have situations where Aladdin on the Mega Drive and Aladdin on the Super Nintendo were actually two completely different games made by two completely different people.
Yeah.
It's actually, the licensing is so muddied in water that it's not that clear cut a case with the old retro stuff. So you've got to wait for somebody else to track it down and right, who owns these licenses? Right, they're ours now. We've bought them from you. So it's not actually that clear cut a case, which is what makes it an even more complicated issue.
Yeah, for sure. It's also interesting as well to talk about retro games and retro gaming and the marketplace, and obviously the ability to buy them. And for us in the West, these retro games have become very much a collector's item. When I was in Japan, the whole ethos surrounding video game history, video game preservation, retro, these retro titles, it is so different. It is so different and so well supported. You walk into Denden Town or Akihabara, and you are going to find a video game store where you can purchase everything. And
several video game stores where
you can go back and purchase, a Mega Drive game or a Nintendo 64. You can buy the original hardware. You can buy the original cartridges in pristine condition. You can get retro TVs and tech that you'll be able to use, because that's the biggest thing is technology and TVs have adapted now to make retro consoles work with modern technology. It's actually really challenging to do. That's why so many people go down the emulation route, because it is so much easier.
And to backtrack on to the original point of what I've been doing recently, Mega Man Battle Network, the reproduction of it on the Switch, one of the key things is the frame rate, the re-rendering of it absolutely looks beautiful on the Switch. Now, if you were to take that original Game Boy cartridge, Game Boy Advance cartridge, put it into a modern day TV, it'd look like absolute
awful
trash.
Yeah.
So there is that re-engineering of it that's a huge part of it,
And there is very much a trend in the industry at the moment for remasters, for remakes. Yeah, some needed more than others, right? Obviously. But I think in a way, when you're remaking a game, though, you are changing what the original game was, because often they're going back and recreating it in a new vision and a new level.
But again, I think that's where you've got to be different between what is a remaster and what is a remake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like didn't they the GTA remaster, was it, that they brought out, that was absolutely awful, and then you couldn't actually buy the original, like the original release of those games.
Yeah, that
And
was
like
weird. And they
I
lost licenses to music in that, and had to
yeah,
change
so I had
that
to
as
change all the
well.
music, so
But then
yeah.
somehow made the graphics worse. It's like,
Yeah.
how? Why?
So,
What?
so it's a great area is remasters remake. So I think I think what Ven says is perfect, honestly. I think he covers everything that we all generally feel and think on it. Obviously adding on it too. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is kind of tied to video game preservation, and I don't want to go into too much detail or depth on this because we might talk about this in a later podcast, but modern gaming and this trend towards digital media, digital releases, and what that means for video game preservation, online stores, servers, things like that. The new Alan Wake 2, for example, that's coming out, I think in October, that is only getting a digital release. You cannot buy that game physically. You can only purchase it digitally. A lot of games now that are physical only come with half the game on the disc, and you have to download the other half of the game. So my question obviously is, what are your guys' take on it for future preservation, when those servers, those stores become no longer available? In March, obviously, I think 3DS and the Wii store completely went down, so you can't purchase any of I think you can still download games that you purchased for the time being anyway, so to make that clear, you can still download games that you have purchased. But my question is, 10, 20 years, are they going to continue to maintain those stores, those servers? What happens when you've purchased these games digitally and they just go away? You're purchasing a license, you're not actually physically buying the game. So what do you guys think about that in terms of video game preservation?
I think most of the time it's, if you're wanting that game and you've purchased that game, you keep a backup of that game. It's in the case of, say, like the Nintendo eShop, for example. A lot of their games do seem to be digital only. So it's like, right, if you don't take this down off the eShop and save it to your little SD card, it's up in the ether. Like, yeah, you might be able to re-download it in the future if the shop goes down, but if it doesn't, then you've lost it. So then Harvey is like, right, well, a lot of people love their physical media, but that's basically just a container for digital information.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if I'm really that desperate and into it, then I should just buy a separate SD card to back up all the games I'm not playing. But I've got them then. I've got a physical source in a way. And yeah, protect that, put that somewhere, and say, right, I've got like 70 odd games on this one little SD card now. Sorted. That's to the backlog, and then get back to what carrying on. Half of the other time, it's like sometimes you might just get lucky. Like when the 3DS shop went down, there's been various titles I'm like, I could never get hold of physically, and some of them weren't even on the eShop, like Ghost Trick. I wanted to play that. Kept hearing so many good things about it, but I couldn't find it in shops. It was too high a price online at the time, and then it just vanished from everywhere. Couldn't buy it anywhere. I went, oh well, maybe one day I'll find it in like a secondhand store or whatnot, and still never forever. And I was always like, when we brought up the what do you want remade question or something like that, that would ended up being on the list because it's the only way I'd get to play it then.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they announced it in a Nintendo Direct
They've
at one point,
remade it, yeah.
Oh yes!
Apparently it's really good, apparently.
Yeah, it was one that got a lot of hype because it was from like the Phoenix Wright guys and stuff like that. And but also games with two screens tend to be a bit trickier to like remaster and all this and that, or bring to consoles. So got lucky there. So now if I want that game, then I should purchase it, stick it on an SD card, and keep it.
To play devil's advocate on this one, though, this is actually, it doesn't really fix the issue. Yes, you could download it on a SD card and you've got a copy of the information on that card, but because everything is now tied to personal accounts that you are downloaded it with, worst case, like long term scenario, Nintendo switch off their servers for their Nintendo accounts. Nintendo switch off their shop for downloading the accounts. Your Switch dies in your 60s, and all of a sudden you think, oh, I really want to play that game. Oh, it doesn't matter. I've got a copy of the game on an SD card. Yeah, but you don't have a Switch anymore, so you go out and get yourself a new Switch, but you don't have access to validate your Nintendo profile anymore. So yes, you have a copy of that game, but you can't play it because it's tied to your Nintendo account, which doesn't exist. Or it's not able to be verified. So it doesn't matter whether you have the data, you physically can't play the game. Whereas if it was a cartridge, you literally boot up your console, stick the cart in, and away you go. So again, absolutely digitally, sales to be a complete counter argument to it. Having it digitally again doesn't change whether you've got it saved on one SD card or multiple SD cards. A large element of it is that it is locked in one way or another to an account, to a profile. When that all goes down the pan, eventually it is basically it's as valuable as the bit of plastic.
You'll lose access to it.
You lose access to it.
DRM
so
and everything,
absolutely, in my opinion, by removing the option for people to get a physical edition of a game is a terrible idea. I'm still 100% on board with the physical media. That's the reason why for Pikmin 1 and 2. Yeah, I own Pikmin 1 and 2 on GameCube, and I've got a Wii version of Pikmin 2, and I can guarantee you that when Pikmin 1 and 2 get released physically on the Switch, I'll buy that. The only reason I haven't absolutely rushed out now and bought a digital copy of Pikmin 1 and 2 is because I know it's getting a physical release. That is a game I would like to keep playing as long as I physically can, because Pikmin 1 and 2 are games I can go back to every couple of years and think, yeah, I'm just going to play through that. It's a good speedrunner game. It's a good game where you can give yourself, I want to play something a bit different, and I know it's got an end. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, without that physical cartridge, that has a limited availability on it.
And that seems to be at least a kind of bonus with the cartridges as well, because if the full game is on there, you're all good.
If the full game is on there, you're fine.
If
the full game is not on there, and you don't know when you buy that, especially if it's a game on place. Look at the next Final Fantasy VII.
They are actually, I believe they are actually required to inform as much.
Are they? So does it actually have to be on the actual box?
I believe if you look on the box art, it does state in certain cases, the big
requires
one being again
download size, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
okay.
Like
Spyro
the Dragon trilogy on the Switch is another key point of that. I would like to buy that, but I refuse to because only the first of the 3 games is actually on that cartridge. So it's like, I'm buying the trilogy, but really I'm not. I'm getting I'm
buying one game on the actual cartridge,
and the rest is
exactly what stopped me buying.
And as games get bigger and bigger and bigger, I mean, on PlayStation 5, and they're just ridiculous now. The next Starfield, I think they said it's like 125 gigabyte. It's just ridiculous. So as games get bigger and more expansive, you are going to find that there are more and more cases of like not having that entire game on that disc. And that's going to become a very real issue. Generally speaking, I prefer physical media. Any game that I consider iconic, that I know I consider to be a masterpiece, or I know I'm going to want to go back and play it, I will always get it physically. If it's a game I'm not as bothered about in terms of like retaining ownership of that, it's like, okay, I'm fine. I just want to play the game and review it, and fine, no problem. I'll get it on sale or get it cheap on CD keys or whatever, and I know I'm not going to want to keep it. But I know if it's a game I really desperately do want to keep in my collection, I'll get it physical. I will always buy it physical.
If it's an online-only game, though, pointless.
Well, thing is, you going in whenever you're playing an online game. I mean, thing is, you have to go in. You have to go in knowing that game does not have an indefinite shelf life. And like Exoprimal, I give that game 12 months. 2 years tops. And I know that, and so that's why I'll get it on Game Pass, because I know that they're not going to continue to, unless they go peer to peer, like they did say with Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. Now that is peer to peer supported. So even 10, 12 years later, after that game had came out and was released, it still has a thriving community that's playing that multiplayer game. So even then, it depends on, you know,
And
what
put
they
it
do.
put it in terms that, you know, Dante can completely understand with Splatoon. I mean,
Well,
you know, Splatoon 1 is, yeah, all right, it's been turned off for a period of time, but it's still, Splatoon 1 is still functionally playable online on the Wii U.
Yeah.
So,
randomly
but
brought
it
it back,
won't
aren't they?
but it won't be forever.
No.
And again, I did exactly the same when purchasing Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3. It's like, yeah, I know that effectively in buying this next game in the series, the previous version I bought is effectively redundant. It's consigned to effectively the FIFA bin of it's never going to be played again. It's going to be sit in a corner and it will not be touched
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because
Only the single player portion will be
of any
accessible and and that.
and it is forever consigned to a bin of remembrance, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with any online, specifically where the game is exclusively designed for online play, you if you go into that game expecting to be playing it forever and a day, then you're fooling yourself, and you've got no one to blame for your disappointment other than yourself.
I think
That's
any
also
online
why-
games have a shelf life. They just do, and you have to accept that, you know.
That's why it really winds me up when single player games.
Oh yeah,
are
they have
online.
to online, have to
Access is
connect
like,
online. Yeah,
SimCity,
yeah,
what were you thinking?
yeah.
I do not play SimCity for my riveting online connection. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think that's why I'm a fan of games that are multiplayer, like cooperative, but are local multiplayer as well. So, like, I like games like that where, like, I know I can continue to enjoy the multiplayer aspect of that many years later, even when those servers have gone, right? You know, like Mario World, 3D World. Is that right? Yeah. And like the new Disney Illusion Island is local co-op as well. So I know that if I want to experience that game multiplayer, I can just call my friends around old school and just play it together. You know, so I will look at that too, you know, in terms of that experience.
So, folks at home watching, let us know what you think in the comments below.
Yes,
Should
please.
games be pirated? Should they be? Well, of course, games shouldn't.
Shouldn't be pirated. Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's not
Don't
promote
go
that on
pirate
my
games.
channel.
Look,
Don't promote
don't
that on
go
my channel,
pirate
please. Suddenly I'm
But
shut down.
ethically, where do you stand? You know, and again, does this relate directly to your buying physical games or digital only games? What do you think?
What's your take on video game preservation? Please do share your comments in the your thoughts in the comment section. Okay, so that's a nice segue. Let's move on to the third part of the podcast today, which is community questions.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
We want to know what you want to know.
So I'll go through these. I've got 3 questions because one of them is actually directed at me. So I chose 3 for today. So question number 1 will be one that you guys, I'm sure, will definitely enjoy, which is, what's your favorite Pokemon? And that was from Seth Beckland. Seth Beckland. So I'll go last on this one then. So who wants to go first?
Dante, you go first.
Okay then. Everyone knows back in Gen 1, I was definitely a follower of Gengar and Snorlax. They were always my favourites. But as time's gone on, I think I've chosen little Mimikyu here as my favourite in general.
Oh,
Yeah, look
So
at it.
cute.
But also horrific, right? This thing is like a ghost and fairy type. Nobody knows its true form because it's hidden under this disguise. It had to make its own disguise to be loved. So it chose popular Pikachu as like what it wants to dress up as, so it can get close to people.
Heartbreaking.
because anyone who's actually looked at it though,
has pretty much died. Anybody that's seen its side, you know, like caught a flash of Pikachu, something like that, have seen its true form, have either died instantly on the spot or caught some sort of weird disease that's killed them off a week later. It's that terrifying, but it's so adorable at the same time. And like, just look at its eyes. No, its eyes are down here. These are the eye holes, not up here. Down here. It's got a little bit of wood for its tail. Like just try it, and it's great because it's like its ability is disguise, so it can take one hit, and it's like its head will just creak off to the side, break. It will snap its neck basically.
And this is your favorite Pokemon one.
Yeah,
it's so dark.
It's adorable.
It's adorable at the same
dark
time.
and adorable
It's
at the
cute as
same
anything.
time. Okay,
But yeah, and also me and ghost types, I like them. So yeah, that's ended up being my fave.
Okay, very good. Fish.
I have so many to pick from, as you can see. They line the back.
There's over 1,000 now.
Yeah, it's mine again. Is still gonna have to be one of the OGs. I love my wheezing. I don't know why. There's something about wheezing. I think it's because so many people hate it, and I just want to be the hipster and go, look at him. He's cute. He's adorable. He's a giant floating ball of gas, and I don't know. He's just.
I love the fact that in Pokemon Sword and Shield he became so wheezing with
his top
hat on. Which is awesome.
I still prefer the classic form. I prefer the classic form, but I like my poison types. I like the introduction of a fairy type purely because it gave poison types something to do. Until the fairy type came along, poison types were a little bit redundant, and they were a bit of a joke, whereas fairy types have given poison types more of a reason to exist. And wheezing, I don't know why. There's something about it I just love.
Very good choices. Yeah, there's too many Pokemon. Like I was looking through like the list of Pokemon. I was like, Jesus Christ, there's over 1,000 Pokemon. That's insane. Usually I'm not as big a Pokemon player as you guys. Obviously, I've dabbled, but I'm not as like experienced as you all are. I tend to go for the fire types. Like in my starting class, I always tend to go for the fire types. But I have a soft spot for cats. Like especially big cats, and we were playing Pokemon. What was the MMO style one? Unite that we were playing, and I played a lot as Zeraora, which is the lightning electric
mythical
tiger. Is it tiger? Is he a tiger?
Yeah,
he's very cool. So I was like, so my favorite actually, because of that, of playing that game is actually now Zeraora. Is it Zeraora? Is my favorite. So yes.
There are a lot of cat type Pokemon these days.
There are. Yes, there are. I quite like Entei at one point too. Which is more of a dog type, I guess, but it still looks like a cat to me. Looks a little.
No, you're right. They are.
A cat.
All three of them are cats, technically.
Yeah,
and officially, but everyone still calls them legendary dogs.
Yeah, so probably Entei or Zora, but anything that's a cat type and everything. I don't really go for types generally. I more go for that looks really cool, and majestic and beautiful. I like it. That is my extent of picking Pokemon.
And then you've got Galarian Meowth, which is none of the above.
No, none of the above. I'm like, oh no.
It is not majestic. It is not cool. It's an aggressive little furball monster. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it is not majestic.
I like Berserker. He's my favourite Meowth.
Berserker. Yeah, Berserker's cool. I like Berserker.
On the topic of too many Pokemon, I actually wholeheartedly hope that in the future they carry on doing what we see little dips of, which is they're just regional variants of existing monsters. I think from now on, unless there's an absolute need to have a brand new Pokemon and it's an absolutely solid design, I would much rather just see them dust off old Pokemon from other regions and say, this is this new region's form of a Pikachu. This is this new region's form of a Poliwag.
Like what they did in Sword and Shield, which is really cool.
Well, yeah, they did it in Sword and Shield. They've done it in Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
You know, Galarian Zigzagoon, Paldean Wooper. Just give me more of that, please. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, Zigzagoon, is that like the Kiss kind of looking one?
Yeah, the black and white one.
The black and white one. I like that. That was cool.
And even if you want to do a variant evolution, like, you know, you've got Galarian Meowth evolving into Berserker rather than, you know.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So, second question there, moving on. This is probably directed more at me because I don't think either of you have one. So, question is from, you could maybe give your opinion on it. Yeah, if you have an opinion. So, second question is, are you buying a Steam Deck and what are your thoughts on it? And this was asked by Big Boss. So, yes, I do have a Steam Deck. I bought that a year ago. about a year ago. I purchased the higher one with the better sort of hard drive space, like solid state drive space on it. And it's really, it's a powerful piece of kit. It's amazing what PC, like what games, like apparently like I can play Baldur's Gate 3 on it. You can play Elden Ring on it. You can play some pretty beefy games on it. But I tend to use it. I do really enjoy it because it is useful to be able to take my PC games handheld and take those with me. But I tend to use it at the moment for more indie style games and kind of play them. I'm playing Dave the Diver at the moment, which I'm really enjoying, actually. It's a right quirky game. It's a really good game. But the battery life on it is just... it's too short. It's shocking. And like obviously the more powerful, you can tweak the settings and things like that so you can get a little bit more out of the battery life, you know. But like, yeah, the battery life is like 2 to 4 hours, like depending on the game that you're playing. It's shocking. It's shocking, especially when you look at like the Switch, which, you know, handheld wise can last a good what? 8?
I think if you've got the OLED version, pushing 9 almost 11.
11 hours, which is fabulous. So like I tend to find like if I'm taking my Steam Deck with me, I got to take my plug and everything else with it. But it's nice. It's a nice, powerful kit, and yeah, it's very cool. Like, and you could also turn it into like a PC as well. Like, it's got its own like UI for Steam, obviously for games and installing games and playing it, but you can actually turn it into a PC and you can run it like a PC, and you know, open apps and different things in there. So it's pretty cool. Like I really like my Steam Deck. I don't use it enough. I should use it more, especially now that I can't sit at my computer desk for any extreme length of time. So I should probably use my Steam Deck a lot more, I would say, to play my handheld games and actually get through some of these games in my backlog that I need to play. So yeah, and the nice thing on Steam is it will tell you whether or not it is Steam Deck, like whether it supports Steam Deck, whether it's compatible.
It can't play everything, can it? Yeah.
No, it can play everything, and like you get like a little green like tick next to it for Steam Deck. So even when you're going and looking at your games, you can see it. Some of them it has like a question mark, or like, and it'll be like, we don't know if it works. Have a go, kind of thing. And sometimes, like, you know, if it's a PC game and the URL, like certain features won't work properly on it, right? Because obviously, you know, if that game is very much geared towards keyboard and mouse, right? Obviously, you can't do that on your Steam Deck. Effectively, it becomes like a giant controller with a screen in the middle. So that's why I'm like, I don't think I'm going to play Baldur's Gate 3 on it, even though that would be really cool. Like, I'm kind of like, it's so much easier to play it on PC, most definitely. So I tend to use it for more of my indie style games or any other games I'm not as bothered about playing on my computer. But it's a powerful piece of tech, and it's impressive, like what they've put into it and what it can do. It's very cool. It's fairly reasonably priced, I would say, as well, considering the power of it. So yeah. Are you guys, what are your thoughts on Steam Deck?
For what you said, I suppose that's the main reason I haven't bothered getting it. Such as like, yeah, it's the Switch, for example, is not as powerful.
Yeah.
But that's why it's got a longer battery life, and it's got games that are accessible on it. It's a lot of the games even made for it have it in mind. So everything's like a decent resolution. Everything's kind of like set up for it that you can just happily play it handheld. And like I say, you're playing indie games on it. All those indie games are mostly on the Switch. Because if you play anything more powerful, then you are going to have the battery life of a Game Gear.
Yeah. It's a shame with that battery life, because the actual handheld itself, it's so comfortable to hold. Like compared to my Switch, I find that my hands cramp a little bit after a while with the Switch if I'm holding it for any extended period of time. But with the Steam Deck, it's got grooves and stuff. It's really comfortable to hold and to play and to game with. So it's just the battery life that lets it down, you know. Yeah.
And I think I'd say same as Dante. For me, it's purely just on the fact of I've got so much, so little free time, that for me it would be a purchase where there would just be other things which would be far more important for my time gaming wise than it would be on the Steam. If I want to play my PC games, that what I will play, I'll just boot up my PC.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's useful if like you're going away somewhere, like on holiday for a bit, or you're going to go visit family for a bit and you're away from home, but you want to take your games with you. You know,
Just
that you've got on
hopefully
your
it's got the
PC.
same
to
AC
play.
current, so you can charge it.
Very good point. Very good point.
Hence why I'd go back to the Switch.
Yeah, very good point. So yeah, I like it, but I don't get as much use out of it as I should probably do. So I should probably do. I'm curious to try Baldur's Gate 3 on it, just to see how it plays. How it handles it. I'm very curious to
be
see.
like, oh, it's so cute and tiny. I bet it looks really nice that size.
I bet it does,
but,
yeah.
But at the same time, it will be not as playable without keyboard and mouse.
I'm curious, and it's kind of cool because you do have the cloud save with it, so like you can play on your Steam Deck and then save your game on your Steam Deck, and it updates your save to the cloud, and then you can just boot up your PC and carry on your playthrough. So it's very smooth transition between Steam Deck and PC in terms of just continuing on that playthrough, which is really, really nice. So you like, even if you're like, okay, I'm gonna play 2 hours handheld because, you know, I'm not at my PC, I'm not at home or whatever, and then when you get home you can just boot it up and carry on. So that's quite nice. So on to the third question then. Have you ever bought a collector's or special edition of a game? This question was asked by Fate for Me. So Fish, do you want to go first on this?
Yeah, in fact, I've bought a couple. They usually tend to be things like Legend of Zelda ones. The most recent one I did buy the Tears of the Kingdom Special Edition. I didn't buy Breath of the Wild Special Edition. But I suppose for me, there's nothing really that makes me want to really buy them, other than just a case of, is there anything that looks cool about it? Sometimes it might be an art book. If more often than not, it's an art book that will sway me. Anything like a soundtrack or an art book, something like that. I used to be swayed by the figures, but due to my collection of crap that gets bigger and bigger and me trying to downsize it, I'm trying not to get swayed in by figures selling me on things these days. And that's purely just down to a space. I'm just going, do I really need it? Case in point, my Wind Waker Ganondorf figure, as delightful as it is, the plastic has started on the casing to frost rather than go. It's started to go a little bit opaque, which for me, I don't know why it's doing it, but this is a reminder to me not to be swayed. It's a lovely figure, but the actual display dome has started to show some signs of aging, and it's like, yeah, everything's not going to stay this way forever. So it's not necessarily a huge thing to get absolutely sold on. That's not to say I won't. Like I said, I didn't intend on buying the Tears of the Kingdom Collector's Edition, and yet, when it came to buying it, I buckled and went, yeah, that looks nice, I'll get it.
What did you get with it?
You got an art book, you got a really nice metal poster, it's one of these ones where you get a magnet to stick to the wall, a nice little series of pin badges, which, again, pin badges are a false economy for me because very rarely will I put them on anything. Ooh, they look nice, and then but I don't want to put it on a coat because if I lose it, then I'll be sad that I lost the
I have
pin.
all these loose pins lying around that I've never put anywhere.
So pin badges are unfortunately, I've trying to again teach myself that don't be swayed by pin badges. They're a false economy.
Exactly, yeah. You just
with the exception, there are some ones that I get, but for those that don't know, I love my Disney, and I'll be going to Disney in Florida in a month's time. And while I was out there, because pin badges are a big thing for the Disney people, they do these cool little metal studs that you can get for the back of a pin badge, which lock with a very tiny little Allen key. So it really does keep them secure because they don't want to lose them. So there are things out there for you die-hard pin collectors to keep your pins safe. So,
I've actually bought a kind of framed cardboard sheet basically with a frame around it, and I'm thinking of putting all my pin badges in it.
Oh, you should
so I
definitely
can
do
basically
that.
display them on a wall.
Yeah.
But because they're all so awkward shapes, I'm gonna have to spend hours trying to
Figure
organize them.
I might take you up on that because I actually have as well. I have a dish here filled with Pokemon pin badges from the 20th anniversary trading card sets. All the legendary sets came with
Oh.
their own little
Nice.
pin for
Oh
their
yeah,
each
they did, didn't
monster.
they?
So I've got all of those. Like there's a Darkrai one here. And yeah, just a dish filled with pins.
But do you have Cool Spot, who did get his own game?
I
7
do
Up.
not have a cool spot pin.
Some weird ones on here. Yeah.
Sorry, Kate. This is now a pin badge.
Yeah. We've turned into it's gone
It's
off
a
on a
Fin
vendor.
Badge podcast.
It's all about pin badges.
So
Sorry, but yes, that's it. Who
cool.
next?
Dante, what about you? I don't think I've ever seen you buy that many collector's editions.
No, and I've kind of got myself set in a kind of rule and this and that is because steel boxes, steel cases, pointless.
I never use them.
In my head.
Yeah.
I don't use them. I've got like a collection of some that kind of just came with my purchase anyway, and it's like, well, they look odd out compared to all the rest of my games, so and so now I've got 2 cases. One of them's technically a waste, and it's like, oh well, what's the point? I think the last main one I even remember buying was Mass Effect 3 when that came out, because we got like that kind of box version, and it had like a little N7 like patch on it and a little art book and stuff like that,
Which I sewed
like,
onto a beanie.
yeah. And that's it. Certain things, like if it's something I'm like going, oh, I'm going to use that, then I'll probably do it. But also some of them, like say with the pin badges, like I want to have them, but they're going to get wrecked or something, and then I'll be sad. But so one of the other things, I think technically you call it collector's edition, was when I backed Kickstarter Shantae Half Genie Hero. That because I was like, oh yeah, I want to get this game made for them with Way Forward and all that, but I kind of do want all that sweet loot as well. And there was like this cool pirate coin and all these like other odds and sods and t-shirt and stuff. But lately, yeah, a collector's edition has to be really special for me to go ooh. And at that point, there's a problem, because if I go ooh, that means the scalpers have gone ooh, and the gits have already got hold of it, and I can't buy it anymore. Or it's so blimmin' expensive that I can't justify it, such as like, cool Geralt statue from Witcher 3 kind of thing. It's like, hey, it's too pricey. I can't.
I wish I'd gone for that instead of the Batman Arkham Knight. Still kicking myself.
You've sometimes it feels like I want to see physically, because that Arkham one, that on screen it looked kind
cool.
of cool, but the actual thing was it just looked
tacky and cheap,
and it's like, this is god awful. I would have never bought this if I knew it was in that. Well, you wouldn't have. That's the point.
Yes, I took that.
You took that hit.
Took that hit.
So that's the problem with collector's editions now, and especially when they start splitting them up, going, oh, what's the difference? This has got this, that's got this.
Yeah.
Like most collector's editions.
Assassin's Creed are good at doing that.
Stuff.
Multiple versions of collector's editions. Ubisoft are good at doing that. They do that all the time. It's really annoying.
And once again, running out of shelf space anyway for the cool statues, so it has to be a really good one.
You see, the thing is, I bought like a whole new bookshelf, like 2 bookshelves, so I have space. I do have space now. Although I have a box like behind me, like right there, which is full of figures, which I need to put up. It says figures on it. So I need to put those up this weekend. That's going to be my mission this weekend, is getting this studio all tidied up and unboxed and everything. I went through a phase of collector's editions because I like me a statue a lot. So I used to go based on that. I used to kind of have a look at what was included in the collector's edition and was it worth the asking price kind of thing. And I did go through a phase where I bought quite a few. Like, I think there's the God of War one there. The God of War. Got Horizon Zero Dawn. I think he's there up there. I've got a couple of Mass Effect ones, as you can see. And so different ones. But I got to the point where I was like, I think the last one I actually bought was Batman Arkham Knight. And it was at the same time that The Witcher 3's collector edition came out, and The Witcher 3 one was Geralt like taking on a griffin, I think it was, at the beginning of the game. And I chose to go for the Arkham Knight one, and it was the worst decision I ever made. I was like heartbroken because the statue was tacky and crap. It just wasn't worth the price. It was so bad. And I think that burnt me. And then I was like, you know what? That was a lot of money on something I'm not going to now display, and I'm really annoyed that you know, that was it didn't look like that, you know, when they promoted it obviously and sold it, and I was really disappointed because I kept seeing like the Geralt statue in like video game stores or collector stores or whatever, and like they just hiked up the price, and I'm like, I really want that statue, but I'm not spending the price that you're asking for it. Like, just forget it. So I stopped like getting them, and I suppose I would get another. I mean, I guess I don't know. I suppose the last one I technically got was the Mass Effect helmet, but it didn't even come with the game. Didn't come with the game. So even I can't stand collector's editions usually that don't come with the game, because I'm like, now you're just insulting me. Like, you're offering me all this gear, but I don't even have the game. Now you're just selling
merchandise.
Now you're just selling merchandise. But that helmet is so frigging cool. And that came with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. That was a collector's edition. And I'm like, I have to get that. If I don't get that, that is going to get scalped. And I'm never going to be able to get that at a reasonable price again. So I chose to put down money, and I don't regret it for a single moment. And then, as you can see, I went through a bit of a Mass Effect bender and got me an Omniblade 2. I have an N7 like neon sign that I think you bought me, Dante, for my birthday, which I need to put up. But the helmet is so cool because it has like a light behind it. So it has a Paragon light and a Renegade light. And you can full on wear it. It's really comfortable. It's bloody warm, and you can't breathe that well in it. I think I started a stream with it on when I first started streaming Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and I'm like, you guys probably can't hear a word I'm saying. I'm gonna have to take this off. But I love it. I absolutely love it. So I don't care. You know me. I'll put anything down on Mass Effect. I'm just easy pickings when it comes to Mass Effect merchandise. But also, I think now, because obviously a content creator and I have to play games for the channel, I am very much looking at investment, and I am very much looking at like, can I afford to waste £150, £200 on a collector's edition when I could buy 4 games, you know, 3 or 4 games for that price that I've put down on one collector's edition, and those could be 3 or 4 games that I could play and cover on the channel. So now I look at it more of as a business kind of thing of like, that's a waste of the channel's funds, and you know, if it's my own thing, like then I will use like my own coin, because that's something that I really, really want. But yeah, like, it'd have to be something truly special. So we'll see. Maybe the next Dragon Age might be something. I don't have any Dragon Age statues. I need a Dragon Age statue.
Wow.
So maybe.
Hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Come on, BioWare. Do something good. So maybe Dragon Age might be the next one, possibly, that I get, but we will have to see. I didn't even get like a Cyberpunk like collector's edition because I don't think I like the statue. So yeah. So that's my take on collectors. Yes, I have many as my like bookshelf contest, many, but not so much recently. I'm being an adult, and I'm being frugal with my money, especially when it costs a living crisis. Damn it, I can't afford to buy collector's editions. So yes, so that's my answer. Very good questions. Those are some good questions. So yeah, thank you so much to everybody, obviously, who asked those questions in the comments. Do please make sure you ask more. I am running out. I'm running out of questions, so please make sure you do ask any questions in the comment section below that you would like us to answer, and we'll obviously do our best to do that on future podcasts. Hope you guys enjoyed the discussions today and our main topic. Do share your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, let us know what you guys are playing. What games are you playing this month? What games are you enjoying? Please do share that. Games, comics, books, board games, doesn't matter, anything. What are you enjoying or watching currently? Please do share that in the comment section description below. Thank you, Fish and Dante, for joining me as always. Really appreciate it, guys. And hopefully we can get back to doing this again next month in September. Yes. And I think we should do a special Halloween one in October as well.
Absolutely. Spooky time.
Yes. So we'll definitely have to do that. But yeah, thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great week, of course. Take care, everyone. And as always, I was like, what the friggin' hell is he doing?
Where did Dante go?
As always, happy gaming. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. We should go.